These are not your regular Neapolitan pizzas. This is Canotto style with a Halloween twist. I'll show you how to make it step by step using Poolish and the pizza app. Canotto means dinghy in Italian, and that's exactly what it looks like. A big, puffy crust around a soft, airy center. The secret is strong flour, good fermentation, and a well-developed dough. And that's where Poolish comes in. So, inside the pizza app, I turn on both cold fermentation and Poolish options. I set hydration to 70%, olive oil to 2%, salt to 3%, with 2 hours at room temperature and 20 hours in the fridge, and 20% Poolish. So first, I mix the Poolish and let it double at room temperature. That only takes about an hour or so. Then it goes into the fridge overnight. Tomorrow morning, we'll mix the final dough. For this recipe, I'm using Malini Italiani pizza flour. It's got around 13% protein. Not much else is written on the bag, so let's see how it performs. I set the Poolish time in the app to 4 hours, but keep in mind it assumes room temperature fermentation, so don't worry about that over-leavening warning. Once it's in the fridge, fermentation slows way down. All right, about 14 hours later. The Poolish looks nice and bubbly. I've got everything pre-measured and ready. I start with some icy water, add the salt, a tiny bit of yeast, and then the Poolish. I give it a good whisk until it's smooth, then start adding the flour little by little. Adding the salt first helps with hydration and gluten development, while the cold water slows the yeast down, so I get more time to mix and build a strong dough. Once all the flour's in, I drizzle in the oil and keep going until the dough hits around 23 degrees Celsius. I like to do a quick lamination, especially with higher hydration doughs. Stretching it out on the table helps build up the gluten and makes the dough stronger. So I flatten the ball a bit, then grab the edges from underneath, lift it up, and pull it outward with both hands. Once it's large enough, I keep stretching it around until it just starts to tear slightly. Letting some air underneath really helps with the stretch. This one already feels pretty strong, so I'll roll it back into a ball and let it rest for about 20 minutes before balling. The dough is nice and relaxed now, so I divide it into 4 balls. They're all around 285 grams each. But since this is a Halloween special, I'm doing something a bit different. I'm adding a few drops of food coloring to make some spooky shades for the toppings later. First though, I form my control ball and place it into a small plastic container on its own. I oil it up a bit so it doesn't stick. Hopefully it'll come out in one piece later. For this project, I borrowed some fractal food coloring from my lovely wife. I've never tried this before, so the green one ended up a bit overworked. Here's how I think it works best. I flatten the dough slightly and gently knead in the color just enough to get a nice tone, then shape it back into a ball without overworking it. This way, you won't get a perfectly uniform color. For that, you'd need to add the dye at the beginning of mixing, But then you'd be stuck with just one color option. The choice is yours. I went with this approach. After each color, make sure to clean your work surface and your hands. Using gloves is also a good idea. My hands looked pretty purple for a whole day after this session. Alright, coloring and balling done. The dough already feels soft and puffy. The Poolish is clearly doing its job. So, into the fridge they go for a full day of cold fermentation. Next up, the toppings. The ghosts are simple cutouts from sliced mozzarella. We just used olive slices for the eyes and mouth. The spiders, or bugs if you like, are also made from olives. It really depends on how many legs you cut for them. And for the mushrooms, we just made a few cuts in the stems, poked eye holes with a straw, and added 2 little nose holes. Easy, fun, and perfectly spooky. Toppings ready, the oven's piping hot. Time to set our dough monster free from its plastic container. It came out super easily and puffed up like crazy. To avoid any sticking, I'm not being shy with the semolina. The excess will burn off during baking and turning anyway. A bit of tomato sauce, grated pecorino cheese, fresh basil leaves, fior di latte, and a few mushroom heads to create our margarita monster. I'm not stretching it too wide though. We want to keep enough dough for that big Canotto-style Cornicione to rise. Wasn't sure how the ghosts would melt, so we added them at the end, though next time, putting them on halfway through baking would probably give the best result. And now, let's check how those colored doughs behave and bake up. During shaping, the dough felt a bit different than the uncolored one, maybe a bit weaker, or maybe its texture just changed a little from the dye. Anyway, I'm super happy with the result. The crust ended up ultra fluffy, crispy on the outside, and soft and silky inside. The colored dough with the toppings gives it a fun, funky vibe too. And if you've got a bit of time, I'll show you one more, a very autumn-style pizza with a mascarpone base, grated pecorino, basil, fior di latte, and a few cubes of roasted pumpkin. After baking, I topped it with burrata, pumpkin seeds, and ricotta leaves. For me, this one was the ultimate Halloween pizza, a really nice mix of flavors and textures. I hope you liked this video. Please hit like and subscribe if you did. Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.